Busch Gardens Tampa opened in 1959, starting off as a brewery, but expanding into a theme park to attract the local community. Over the years, it's gone through some different names, including the Lost Continent back in the 1970s, and Busch Gardens Africa in 2006. They got their first coaster in 1976, and over the years, they've seen 13 come and go. Today, let's take a look at all of them and count them down. These are the coasters of Busch Gardens Tampa, past and present, from worst to best. I have been to this park twice, once in 2018 and again in 2022, and I've ridden 10 of the 13, though one is set to open this year. For that one, and the others I haven't ridden, I'll have to rely on my experience with clones or similar coasters to rank them, so if you have ridden them and don't agree, let me know what you think in the comments below. Number 13. Air Grover, a Zero Force family coaster, opened in 2010. Busch Gardens' smallest coaster, but it's definitely more of a family coaster than a kid's coaster. It uses a booster wheel to climb about 24 feet, hits a top speed of about 26 miles an hour, and covers about 600 feet of track. You sit in these 8-car trains, led by Grover flying your plane, or your train, and you got a camel in the back. You get to sit in the middle. It's basically an upward helix after the drop and a downward helix before the brakes. Not a bad kids coaster, but the weakest coaster in the park's history. Number 12. Sand Serpent, a Mock Rides Wild Mouse, opened in 2004, closed in 2023. The only relocated coaster in the park. This opened in 1996 at the other Busch Gardens Park in Williamsburg, then known as Izzy in honor of the 1996 Summer Olympics, and then Wild Mouse before it was removed in 2003. It was known as Cheetah Chase until 2011 when Cheetah Hunt opened, so it changed its name to Sand Serpent. This is one of Mock's compact Wild Mouse coasters, not having that big first drop to start, and I always thought this was one of the worst Wild Mice. Last time I rode it in 2022, it was trimmed way too hard and it led to a very slow ride. I think the rides seem worse because of the quality of rides around it, and it always seemed out of place. This closed in 2023 and was torn down. Number 11. Python, an Aero Looper, opened in 1976, closed in 2006. The park's first coaster was a very basic model, but at the time it was a big deal. This opened just a year after the original Corkscrew at Knott's Berry Farm, the first modern coaster to go upside down. Python was the same model, climbing 72 feet, dropping into a turn around the station, into 2 corkscrews, and turning back to the station. I never rode this one, but I have ridden exact clones, like the original one since it moved to Silverwood, and the one at Michigan's Adventure. One was fine, the other was dreadful, so I'm not sure what to make of this one. Based on its layout, I can't rank it too high. It just misses the top 10. Number 10. Phoenix Rising, a B&M family invert, opening in 2024. This is a tough one. We're kind of in uncharted waters here. There are only 2 B&M family inverts in the world, and they're both in China. This is going to have a straight drop into a big overbank, twist and weave its way back towards the station, ending with a helix before turning to the brakes. We haven't seen much from the park about this project, so check out this no limits rendering from Nosowski. The full video is in the links below. Looking at this layout, it's very similar to a Vekoma family suspended coaster. From the straight drop and overbank to start to the helix at the end, it's a bit more drawn out in the middle and less compact, but still, it's very similar. If it rides like a Vekoma family suspended coaster, it should be very good. Those are super smooth, they have some force, and they're popular. It may not be a big new flashy ride, but it's a solid addition. Number 9. Scorpion, a Schwarzkopf Looper, opened in 1980. There were a bunch of compact Schwarzkopf Loopers opening in the 80s, but this one is kind of unique. It's the Silver Arrow model. Only 3 of them were built, and this is the only one that ever operated in the US. This also seems a bit out of place in this park, definitely built to be portable as it celebrates its 46th season in 2024. It rises up 60 feet, dropping into its lone inversion, a vertical loop, then stays super low to the ground with twists and turns to finish, going back through its loop, covering just over 1,800 feet of track. On my last ride in 2022, I thought it was running glossy smooth, and it brought some very solid intensity. For an old portable coaster pushing 50, smoothness and intensity is all you can ask for, and this seems to be on solid ground at the park. Number 8. Tigris, a Premier Ride Skyrocket 2, opened in 2019. SeaWorld bought a package of these, Tigris being the last one, announced for the park the same time they said RMC Gwazi was coming right after. So basically, here's a coaster to hold you over while you wait for the good one. For a holdover, it's a good ride. It has that multi-pass launch, hitting 62 miles an hour, 150 feet tall, that inline twist all the way at the top. And it has those 3-car trains, so when you sit in the back, you get some amazing whip over the vertical drop. It does have comfort collars, and that's too bad, but if you can get past the neck slapping, it's a fun and forceful ride. Number 7. Cobra's Curse, a mock ride spinner, opened in 2016. Busch Gardens opened this new family coaster right between Cheetah Hunt and Montu, and on the surface, it's just a spinning family coaster. However, it's a bit more dynamic than that. You start with an elevator lift, going right into a cobra's mouth. Dive down 70 feet, hit a max speed of 40 miles an hour, and the ride is split into 3 sections. You start off forward, then you stop on a brake run and the cars turn backward, go through another section, and then you have a lift hill, the train unlocks, and you finish the ride spinning. That can get pretty intense. I rode this by myself in 2023, so the weight load was totally off in the train and it was awesome. How much you spin is going to vary based on weight, so if you can arrange your party to make it uneven on each side, you should do it. Its theming is pretty good. It has 3 distinct sections. It offers a long ride. This is one of the best family coasters out there. Number 6. Gwazi, a GCI dueling wooden coaster, opened in 1999, closed in 2015. GCI was still a relatively new company when they got the Gwazi project, this being their 4th coaster and first one with dual tracks. A Gwazi is a mythological creature with the head of a tiger and a body of a lion. So one side was called the tiger, the other the lion, and both tracks would climb 105 feet, drop 92 feet, cover 3,500 feet of track, maxing out at 51 miles an hour. This was a major intertwined mess of wooden track, and over the years, apparently it got worse and worse. It started with PTC trains. Those were replaced by Millennium Flyers in 2011, but by the end, people said it was just brutally rough. The Tiger side closed after the 2012 season, and the Lion side made it all the way to the start of 2015 before the plug was pulled for good. It stood there for 4 years. I got to see it in 2018 but never got to ride it. And finally, in 2019, RMC came in and did what RMC does. I'm sure this was a much better ride in 1999 compared to 2015, so your opinion will probably change based on when you rode it. Given the size and scale of this coaster, I think it belongs at number 6 on this list, but as always, if you have another opinion, let me hear it. Number 5. Kumba, a B&M sit-down looper, opened in 1993. This was B&M's first large-scale project, building small stand-ups and inverts up to this point, but Kumba stands 143 feet tall, has a 135-foot twisted drop, hits 60 miles an hour, and flies into a 4,000-foot course with 7 inversions. It's a long, complete ride, and some people might even say it's top 2 in the park. I've never been that impressed with it. I know, a lot of people love how intense it is, but I thought that part was overrated, and it definitely could stand or run smoother. I don't want to seem like I'm trashing it, because the ride is just fine. You have a 114-foot tall loop, a dive loop, a 0G roll that some people call the hell roll. This actually does pack a punch with some good laterals. Then you dive under a bridge and rise up into a Cobra roll, and after a mid-course brake run, you have interlocking corkscrews. This is very picturesque, even if it's not that great to ride through. The rumors of this ride's demise have been circulating for the last 2 years, but so far it's been safe. Still, if you want to ride it, you may want to do it soon. Number 4. SheiKra, a B&M dive coaster, opened in 2005. America's first dive coaster. This is themed to a hawk that dives straight down to grab its prey. That's a great fitting theme for a dive coaster. It stands 200 feet tall, down into a 90-degree drop at 70 miles an hour, turns around with a big Immelman, then goes into a mid-course brake run. Then you got another vertical drop, a big turnaround, and a splashdown finale. I really liked this the first time I rode it, but when you compare it to other dive coasters, it does fall short. The first drop is great. It has the old B&M restraints, so you're floating all the way down. You also got the second drop, and that's great also. Aside from that, there's not much to get excited about. B&M definitely gave Griffin an upgrade when they built that for the other Busch Gardens park 2 years later. It spent the first 2 years with a train that had a floor, and those were replaced in 2007 to make it floorless just like the rest of them. I also had some weird rides in 2018 where this was running super rough, but I didn't get any of that in 2022. It's a fun ride, but just don't scrutinize it too much against other dives. Number 3. Cheetah Hunt, an Intamin LSM coaster, opened in 2011. The next American installment of an Intamin Blitz coaster after Maverick, Cheetah Hunt proved to be very different. How a triple launch coaster that goes upside down could be a family coaster? It's hard to believe, but ride Cheetah Hunt and you can understand. It has a mild launch to start, turning up over a footpath and then back under it, hitting its main launch at 60 miles an hour, rising into its wind catcher tower, a 102-foot crow's nest type element that gives you an aerial view of Busch Gardens. Then you dive down 130 feet into a low-to-the-ground layout off the beaten path, emulating the movements of a cheetah hunting for its prey, rising up into a heartline roll, hitting one more launch in an airtime hill, twisting your way back to the station. It covers over 4,400 feet of track, gives you 87 seconds of prime ride time, and it's a really great coaster that appeals to everyone. You aren't going to see it top any enthusiast's top 10 list, but it's a coaster they can enjoy, as well as the general public not looking to get their face ripped off. That's why this always has a huge line. If they could replace the hard over-the-shoulder restraints with soft straps, or better yet, lap bars, this would be so much better, but it's still one of the more unique coaster experiences in the country. Number 2. Montu, a B&M invert, opened in 1996. Themed to the Egyptian god of war, Montu is one of the very early inverted coasters, and it stands as one of their best, at least for me, the best in America. 150 feet tall, 128 foot drop, 60 miles an hour, almost 4,000 feet of track and 7 inversions. That's typical for a large-scale invert, but Montu is special for its setting. It dives underground, into tunnels, into trenches, that batwing being one of the most intense elements of all time, and after the mid-course brake run, it barely peeks out from the ground level. You have a loop in a trench, rising up and back into a trench, only going above ground to twist into the final corkscrew, then winds back to the station. I've ridden all the inverts in America, and this one stands above the rest. That's impressive because it has some very good competition. After my first trip to Busch Gardens in 2018, this was by far my favorite coaster in the park. It couldn't maintain that, but still remains a solid top 50 coaster. Number 1. Iron Gwazi, an RMC Hyper Hybrid, opened in 2022. When Gwazi closed, we all waited to see what would be done with it. In 2018, we learned that RMC was on the job. In February 2019, we learned that RMC was going above and beyond the call of duty. They didn't need to make it 206 feet tall, about twice as tall as the original Gwazi, but they did. They also gave it a beyond vertical drop, over 4,000 feet of track, and a layout that would blow away just about every other RMC out there. This is a non-stop, relentless layout, the best-paced American RMC, second in the world only to Zadra, including that barrel roll down drop, which is an element not for the faint of heart. It has so much speed at the end, they could have made this a mile long, but they chose to end it after the 4,000 foot mark. That's fine, even though it's not as good as Steel Vengeance. It's the best coaster in the park, the second best coaster in Florida. Velocicoaster has it by one spot. My fourth favorite RMC, but that still lands it in my overall top 10. Just a warning, when I was there, the operations were terrible. They were taking at least 5 minutes to send out a train, and if you ride it in the morning, you may be wondering why this ride gets all the hype. It takes a while to warm up, so make sure you get at least one ride in the afternoon. And if you can, try a night ride. Those are insane. That's a wrap on every coaster ever at Busch Gardens Tampa. Let me know where you agree or disagree, what you would change around, and if your experiences were different than mine. Before you go, don't forget to drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a playlist with other parks in this series. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel if you're also a baseball fan. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.